Hey everyone, Z-Slayer Dre here, and today I'm going over the Ubisoft Forward reveal that went over the upcoming lineup of upcoming new Ubisoft games, along with some updates to existing games. Unfortunately, I've been getting copyright strikes to my reaction videos, so I'm going to have to seriously limit what I show, maybe just show still images. It really sucks considering making this video would be much better if I could actually show like a visual representation of what I'm talking about, but there's really nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. So let's get into it. The event was about 3 hours long, but most of that was just like a pre-show and then a pre-show and an after-show. The biggest takeaway from the pre-show was the update to Ghost Recon Breakpoint. If you don't remember, Breakpoint was a buggy, half-finished mess that Ubisoft squirted out last year that performed so badly that it hurt Ubisoft's financials by quite a bit last year, and even made them vow to do better going forward and make their games more unique from each other instead of having them basically just have all the same mechanics. I will believe that statement when I see it, although games take a few years to develop, so if what they said is true, we won't see this in action in at least for like another few years. I mean, Capcom did a similar thing where they promised to make better games, and it took a few years, and eventually they came out with Resident Evil 2 and Devil May Cry 5 that's been very well received. So if Ubisoft could pull off something like that, I mean, I would be all for that. Hopefully they do. So the big update to Ghost Recon Breakpoint is that they are finally adding in AI teammates, which were in most of the Ghost Recon games, or at least the ones I've played. So it's nice to see a basic feature of that franchise finally being added back in. I know when I tried to play it, and it got so boring just playing alone. I tried playing with random people. It's a mixed result with that. It's really just more fun when you have your squad. It's really sad that it's taken them this long to actually get close to finishing a game that was released last year. And I hope at some point Ubisoft will fix it to the point where the people who bought it will be able to fully enjoy the game. And I know they have done some other big updates that hopefully they've gone over well, and hopefully they're close to finishing the game at this point. But the horrible practice of the releasing a half-finished game, then through updates over several years, finally finishing it needs to stop. It basically makes people who purchase the game at launch into beta or even alpha game testers, but instead of Ubisoft paying them for a job that they perform for them, instead these people actually have to pay Ubisoft for the privilege. I really think it should be illegal to release unfinished products, and I think it technically is, but depending on what region you are, but sometimes laws just don't catch up to current day technology, so it will continue until companies are legally required to actually release finished content. And it has happened where games have been so bad that there have been lawsuits or consumer watch groups have threatened to sue companies, but it's been in very extreme circumstances. It doesn't happen as much anymore because it's just such a common practice. Like, basically every game is like that now. But after the Ghost Recon Breakpoint update, we got a decent look at Watch Dogs Legion. I actually enjoyed the first Watch Dogs, or at least the gameplay. The story was just a generic Ubisoft revenge story that it just didn't do it for me. But if they'd taken the foundation of what they made in the first game and just improved upon it in the second game, it could have been a great game. Instead, they just tried to course correct way too far and ended up on the complete opposite end of the spectrum and made the game way too light and for the subject matter, and created a very odd tone where people are laughing and smiling while they murder a bunch of people and commit crimes. It's just really awkward story-wise. And I didn't enjoy the gameplay changes. It just felt incredibly awkward to play on a controller and a keyboard. Initially, the original Watch Dogs did feel awkward to me, but I got used to it, and eventually I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. That never happened with me for the second game, although I know that other people have, enjoyed the gameplay changes, so hopefully they can, continue to improve on it. But going into Legion, I'm potentially interested, but I just know Ubisoft too well. It's going to be quite buggy, and I'm sure it'll be stuff full of microtransactions. I mean, the last game had a ton of them, which ends up dragging the game down into the dirt, even if it has potential to be, a great game. So they began by showing a quick movie, which was fine. It was a bit boring, but, I guess it got people into the story and the mindset of what's going on. But then they showed off, the the big gameplay loop is where you can recruit a wide variety of people, almost it seems like almost anybody, and each person can have special abilities, or depending on their profession, can augment others. You can recruit them by doing an origin mission, and it really reminded me of recruiting assassins in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Revelations, but maybe just a little bit more substance added in. Like, in those games, it was basically you just find a random dude or girl just getting attacked by guards, and you save them, and they're like, okay, I'll be your assassin now. It seems like they're actually like a little bit more involved missions, but it looked pretty cool how the wide range of people you could recruit. And then they showed how you can approach getting through an enemy base in different ways depending on which character you use. The gameplay was scripted, but it did paint a decent picture of how the game will be played. It's not too different from other games, but it did seem smoother, but again, it's choreographed stuff, so it's hard to say. There's also basically no HUD, which I was wondering if they got rid of the HUD stuff, but I saw a Digital Foundry video after they just removed the HUD for cinematic appeal. There is a full HUD looking like the other games in Legion, so that was just purely for show, really. But you'll be playing in London this time around, and I really hope they can make it on one scale. I mean, it looks incredible from what I've seen. I loved London and AC Syndicate. It looked gorgeous. I know they only give you part of London. I would like to see the full all of London, and obviously it's over 100 years later, so it will look different, but it's just such a perfect place for a video game to be. Honestly, it's such a great map to explore. I really hope they do focus on verticality over just making it gigantic. Obviously, I mean, there's a set size it can be because it's a city. I mean, they could do some surrounding regions, but I would like to see verticality where you can go into a lot of buildings or secret places you can go through, or just other stuff you can do other than just having a flat open world, with not much to do. So next they showed off a few mobile games, which honestly I couldn't care less about if I tried. Their mobile games will be stuffed full of microtransactions, and the gameplay won't be nearly as good as you can experience on PC or console, although Brawlhalla is on the one that's coming is Brawlhalla, and it's coming to iOS and Android, and it'll feature crossplay, so I think it's basically the same as console. I haven't played it, so it might be great. I have heard good things about it, so maybe it is a good game. I'm not interested personally. And then they had a commercial for a Might and Magic mobile game. It just seems like they're using nostalgia to sell, a mobile game basically. And then the next one, I didn't even know this was a mobile game. I had to actually look it up on their website because it said nowhere in the trailer, or at least I didn't see anywhere. But they showed off a new mobile game called Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which seems to be like a hero shooter, but it was just a cinematic trailer, so hard to tell. According to the description they gave in the video, it's a fast military role-playing game where players will assemble and upgrade the most iconic Tom Clancy's heroes and villains to lead them in stunning real-time 5v5 shooting battles. It also says there will be PvP and PvE modes. I'm not a fan of the cartoonish graphics, especially given it's a Tom Clancy game. It doesn't make any sense. But it's a mobile game, so that's probably why. And again, I'm not interested in mobile games. But it does seem like an interesting concept, so I wish it was something that would be made into a fully fleshed out game for PC or console, but mobile makes money, so that's what it's what they're gonna go to. Now, next they got into, get ready for it, seriously, you're never going to believe this. I don't know, are you sure you're ready to hear this announcement? Because it's so amazing. You're not going to believe me. You're going to say I'm a liar. They announced a Battle Royale game. I bet everyone's mind is blown right now. I mean, seriously, another Battle Royale game. Who would have thought? I mean, I'm sure everyone's been asking for that, and everyone's so excited because we definitely don't have enough of those. All joking aside, I did like this cinematic trailer for Hyperscape. It did give a hint of something of a story, although once it went to show the gameplay, it didn't really say much about it, but it did seem like a cool world that it was setting up. And the differentiating feature of this Battle Royale is that Twitch viewers will be able to vote on different gameplay modifiers that will affect gameplay, like changing the gravity, and the players will have to adapt to different modifiers. It's an interesting idea and concept, but in reality, it's going to be just a total cluster, you know what. I mean, everyone's going to have to deal with it, but it just probably, I don't know how well that's going to work in practice. I did like the map, though. It seems like verticality was a big focus, and the art direction, it looks like what if Overwatch and Apex Legend has had a baby? But it did seem like a cool map. And I'm not personally much of a Battle Royale player. The only one I've played really is Apex Legends, and I did like it. It's a good game mechanically. It got stale for me, pretty quickly, and I didn't really have any interest in playing the other Battle Royales personally. But I will go back to Apex Legends, here and there. I might give this one a try. It does seem somewhat interesting, but again, I don't know if it will really hold my attention. They did show more gameplay in the post-show, and it looks like it has all the standard gameplay mechanics of other Battle Royale games, the stuff they stole from Apex Legends, basically. So it's not really evolving the gameplay much other than the Twitch voting. Not that it needs to. If you refine stuff over time and just focus on making everything better, you don't necessarily have to do something wildly different than everyone else. But again, I don't play too many Battle Royales, so I can't speak on how good it looks or not. To me, it did seem like it looked decent. But like I said, I think the Twitch mechanics will be more of a nuisance, but not everyone watches streamers or streams. Some people just like playing the games, but streaming makes companies money, so they'll shove it down our throats whether we like it or not. And like I said, there's a lot of people who do like watch streams, and that's perfectly fine. But there's a lot of people who just want to go online and play an online shooter, and they don't want to deal with the Twitch stuff. Just, not everyone's into that. I guess it is what it is. Next, they got into what I think most people were watching this stream for, which is why they saved it for the end, which was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, of course. We finally saw some actual gameplay, not just trailers that were called gameplay. A large portion of the Assassin's Creed community wanted Ubisoft to go back to Assassin's Creed roots and focus on making the new games more like the old ones. But unfortunately, it seems like they're dead set on keeping the new RPG mechanics. I'm somewhat in the middle. I would like both an Assassin's Creed game similar to Brotherhood and Revelations with a good story to go along with it. But I absolutely love RPGs. I just want the games to be well made with a great story and good gameplay mechanics. No microtransactions and minimal bugs. Unfortunately for me, that's the exact opposite from what we'll get, and I don't think we'll ever see an Assassin's Creed go back to the glory days. Even say anything about the modern day. I did actually like the modern day, but at this point, if you're not gonna even try to make it a good story, then don't even bother with the modern day. If you're gonna do it, actually put some effort in. I really don't see how it could turn out well, considering how many different gameplay mechanics and loops there are in the game. It's simply just spread way too thin to be good. It's quantity over quality approach, and sadly, for a lot of people, quantity does equal quality. And of course, it'll have pretty graphics, so that will make quite a few people buy it just for that reason alone. But it has a lot of the stuff from Odyssey, and this time around they're bringing back the base building mechanic from the older games, but it's it's expanded upon. You can start up settlements and have to build buildings and forge alliances or conquer nearby regions. I am curious if you can conquer all the regions or if some are unconquerable, like in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Mechanics like this can be fun, but in this case, it's just another excuse to sell time-saving microtransactions and DLC, so it'll probably end up being a chore. They're going to sell a ton of microtransactions for different skins for your buildings, or time saver to make your buildings build faster, or the buildings are going to cost a ton of materials, so you have to they'll make them cost an insane amount of materials, so you have to they'll basically annoy you into wanting to buy the microtransactions. They also threw back in social stealth from the older games, which is nice to see. Although it really doesn't seem like stealth gameplay is a focus. It's kind of taking a back seat to straight up combat this time around. They showed up a boss encounter, and they did say, I know they said it, that you would be able to one-shot assassinate people, but in this boss encounter, they specifically said even if you took a stealthy approach, you could not one-shot the boss. So, getting some very conflicted stuff. It does seem like maybe you can assassinate just regular people, like guards and enemies, but bosses you will not be able to. You can take out a big chunk of the boss's health with stealth, they said, but you're still gonna have to go through the fight with the boss mechanics. So it really doesn't seem like stealth is the focus for this game. But you can have a team of fighters. You get a long ship you can have them on. They can come along and assault bases with you. The bases, like assaults, reminded me quite a bit of Shadow of War, and the actual battles seem very similar to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is kind of a disappointment. They were just kind of like little sections of people like spreaded fighting like little mini battles. I would like to see an actual like full on battle, but it's early gameplay footage, so maybe they'll improve it. Who knows? And also, since people complained about how you couldn't use a shield in the last game, this time around you can dual wield shields. Or any weapon for that matter. They said they're focusing on, you get less weapons, but you focus more on becoming proficient with a specific weapon. We'll see how that works. I'm hoping they cleaned up the combat, because somehow it felt clunkier in Odyssey compared to Origins, and it did look kind of clunky just from the gameplay. I think it's at 30 FPS though, so sometimes just improving the frame rate will make combat feel cleaner, just doing that alone. So I really just wish they would build upon the amazing foundation they made in Origins and improved upon it. Instead, they made Odyssey, and I don't know. It's such a cool franchise. I really wish they would just make it good again, but it doesn't seem like it's ever going to go back. They got ship songs back, so your crew can sing songs, and tattoos will be a customization focus. You can find them in the world. You chase after them like the shanties in Assassin's Creed 4, which it was always fun. So they've kind of reverted a little bit, or quite a bit, from collectibles in Assassin's Creed games. So it seems like maybe they're adding in some more this time around. And also they'll bring back story choices, because player choice. Although I really hope the writing is better this time around. You have to have good writing if you're doing the choices, and they don't have a good writing team. They claim that this is historically realistic at the beginning, and then they showed off a boss battle against a giant and giant wolves. So, realism, right? It's looking like a dud of a game, and as I've said so many times, I don't think it's gonna get better. I want it to though. I really like the franchise. I want it to be good again. The only way we'll get another great Assassin's Creed game is if the series starts to sell very poorly. Although they have so many microtransactions, DLC, special editions, and season passes, even if it sells less copies, they're making a lot more money per person that buys the game. So we'll have to seriously bomb before anything changes, and even then, I'm not sure if that would help. I tried to find sales figures for Odyssey, but there's really nothing solid out there. It did say that there was over 10 million copies sold for Odyssey and Origins, but it's sketchy how they did the formulation for how they got to 10 million copies, so I'm not sure. I've tried posting online to get a definitive answer on that, and no one's really sure. So it does seem like they've sold well though, which is a shame. But people brought up, it's gone on sale for I think down to $15. So, if you have a bunch of people buying it for $15, then, that doesn't really count as much as a full sale. People are just waiting until it costs nothing. There's a bunch about player engagement being up compared to Origins, but that makes sense considering how much filler content and padding Odyssey had that just wasted the player's time compared to Origins. Even if less people played Odyssey compared to Origins, the engagement numbers would be higher for Odyssey, so I can't really tell much from that. It seems like Ubisoft hasn't really given solid sales numbers since Unity, so the assumption is, I think it must have sold less than the older games because they haven't bragged about it. But at the same time, I found that figure on they hit a yearly sales chart saying that it was over 10 million, which is really good. So I don't know, but they get so much from the other sources of income from the game, like DLC and microtransactions. So like I said, even if the sales numbers are lower, they're probably still making more money. And finally, they showed a little teaser for Far Cry 6, although no gameplay was shown. It was just a short cinematic along with the behind the scenes of the new villain's actor. I'm not going to say this right, Giancarlo Esposito. From Breaking Bad, who perfect choice for a Far Cry villain. I wouldn't have thought of it, but looking at him, perfect Far Cry villain. But Ubisoft can't write anymore. They haven't written anything great in a long time. The Far Cry stories have been terrible since Far Cry 3. Far Cry 4 was okay. Far Cry 5, New Dawn, oh my god, those were dreadfully written. It's just even though he's a great actor, there's only so much he'll be able to do with a poorly written script, and honestly feels like such a waste to have him in what will most likely be a throwaway game. Ubisoft also boasted it will be the largest Far Cry open world yet to date, because that makes a good game, right? Far Cry 5 was quite large, and most of it was either empty or just filled with the same repetitive crap, making the size of the world absolutely pointless. Its only really function is to say, so it has a bullet point on the back of the box saying it has a giant open world. I would much rather have a smaller, well-made world with a high focus on verticality and depth, as opposed to just having another generic, flat, giant open world. And while no gameplay was shown, I think we know exactly how the game will look and play already, because, I mean, it's Far Cry. It's going to be basically the same. I do wish they brought back the leveling mechanics. I really didn't like the perks in Far Cry 5. I think Far Cry 4 was kind of like the best of both worlds, because it really improved on the mechanics of 3. The story wasn't as good, but it had a really good map. So I kind of, even though I think 3 is the best, I do really like 4 just because of that. So hopefully we can go back to that. But overall, a pretty bland affair. Ubisoft frustrates me more than most other game companies, because I really like their franchises, but the games of the past few years have just been so poorly made and shoved full of microtransactions that it just makes it not fun to play. I really hope they can turn things around eventually and we start getting good games again from them, because at this point I don't see it happening. But, let me know down in the comments if there's any games that got announced that you're looking forward to, or if you're disappointed in anything you saw. Do you think they can turn it around? I'm curious to know. And I'm also curious about Gods and Monsters, because that was left out. And it was supposed to have already been released in February, actually, but it got delayed. They did say it's supposed to still be released this fiscal year, so it's kind of odd that they didn't show off anything from the game. But supposedly there's supposed to be more Ubisoft streams in the future, so maybe they're just waiting to show it off then. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be, maybe a February release next year, honestly, or March, because I think their fiscal year ends in March, so probably around then. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to see my videos as soon as they come out. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next video.